In the courthouse behind you. We want to bring it over to our NBC 10 legal analyst, Mark Dana. Mark, you on the phone right there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Alison.
Mark, what do you make of this? Day 7, guilty, all 5 counts, including murder in the first degree. A lot of people were saying this was a circumstantial case, but we've got guilty on all 5 counts.
Yeah, and what you see here is the indication in the jury room between first and second. It seems very clear this wasn't going to be an acquittal. What they were arguing about was whether this was the degree of premeditation. Very hard to accomplish on a circumstantial case. Like we said early on, the prosecution had a lot of circumstantial evidence, and they were able to use it to sustain a first-degree conviction, which is unusual. First-degree convictions generally come with eyewitnesses. So the prosecution did what they had to do, and that's where we're at.
What does circumstantial evidence really mean for viewers who are listening right now? That term's been dropped around a lot, especially in connection with this case. But what does it specifically mean? What did they lack in this case?
They lacked eyewitnesses. They lacked the weapon. And so when you lack those key pieces of information, you've got to create a building block of walls, of a wall, so that you can tell the jury, this is the circumstance that happened. No, we don't have anybody that saw it, but we have this piece of evidence and this piece of evidence and this piece of evidence. And they went on for weeks like that. And at the end, with a good close, they brought it all together. All of the evidence that brought it together at the end was a circumstantial case. And the judge instructs, circumstantial evidence is good evidence. And it seems as though they utilized their circumstantial evidence to really show that not only was he present, but he was the guy.
Involved.
He was the ringleader.
He was involved. Okay, what happens next procedurally? My understanding is in less than 10 minutes we're going to hear sentencing, and with this comes life without parole. That's according to state law. But does Aaron Hernandez have the ability then, of course, to appeal? And do you think they will? Oh,
absolutely they will. The judge will issue her sentence, which is non-discretionary at this point. They will file various motions still before her, arguing various aspects of motion for a new trial. Assuming those are all denied, he has a right of appeal, and I'm sure he will take that right of appeal, and then it's up to the Supreme Judicial Court.
We're looking right now live pictures from above the courthouse where the sentencing phase of the Aaron Hernandez murder trial is about to happen. If you're just joining us, it's 10:44 in the morning. Aaron Hernandez has just been found guilty on all 5 counts against him. Involving murder in the first degree. He was accused of killing Odin Lloyd back in 2013. We want to get right out now to NBC 10's Adam Bagney, who's live in front of the courthouse. Adam, you were inside the courtroom when this happened, or inside the courthouse when this happened. Give us a sense of what you were feeling, what was happening.
Unbelievable, really an unbelievable scene, Allison. As that verdict was read, an audible gasp from both sides as it came through. What an emotional moment, and obviously justice in their opinion for the family of Odin Lloyd. They screamed out, they hugged each other, they cried. On the other side, Cheyenne Jenkins also cried out, grabbed Aaron Hernandez's mother. Those were the only 2 individuals representing Aaron Hernandez's family in court today. They grabbed each other, they hugged, they cried. I'm not sure what you guys could see on the television screen, but very, very few, no tears whatsoever from Aaron Hernandez. Not a lot of reaction. He did peek behind his family and take a look at his mother and his fiance as they cried. But I have to tell you, of all the events that I've covered in my career, the tension in that room was palpable. It was standing room only as that verdict came down. And again, the defense polling every single juror after the verdict came down, which is pretty standard. So each of them had to say, yes, I do agree with this first-degree murder decision, and we will have it within the next 10 minutes or so, at about 10 minutes of the hour, the victim impact statements. Those could be some of the most emotional moments of the trial, as potentially the victims of his family basically get on the stand and speak to the judge and tell her why they think Aaron Hernandez should get life in prison, which is a mandatory sentence in a first-degree murder case.
Without parole.
Without parole, correct.
All right, Adam, thank you. We're going to go right back out to NBC 10's legal analyst, Mark Dana. Mark, what do you think the likelihood of these impact statements are going to have when it comes to sentencing Aaron Hernandez to life in prison without parole? How important are those impact statements going to be?
Well, as I said, the sentencing is going to be a sentence that is non-discretionary at this point, and that's why it's coming so quickly. The ability for the victim's family to speak out and to say what this means is important, and it's by law required so that those folks can have an opportunity to say what they need to say. But at the end of the day, it's going to be what it's going to be, and there's very little chance of anything changing as a result of those statements.
Now, do both sides get to give impact statements in the next few minutes in front of the judge?
Absolutely. There is the ability to do that. The defense has to be very careful when they do that, because when you give impact statements, it affects your appeal and it affects aspects of your appeal. So you've got to do it cautiously if you're going to do it. And not a lot of defense attorneys do it. A lot of them don't do it. They put all their eggs in the appeal basket and go that route.
And to be clear, Hernandez's problems are not over yet. He's still facing another trial in a double murder in Boston. How does that become affected now that we have guilty on all 5 counts in this case?
Well, Suffolk County is going to continue to prosecute those cases. It's not a situation where you have additional crimes that did not result in murder. And when you have cases that result in murder that are pending, those are going to go forward. The people that died, according to the prosecution, have a right to have that case moved. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And a lot of people may think, oh, it's ridiculous to have that if this holds up. But it's really not on a murder case. And I assume Suffolk County DA will just continue to prosecute as they've intended.
If an appeal were to happen, what sort of timeline are we looking at as far as the defense team goes?
Probably to get a good appeals team in there and be able to get your briefs done. They're probably looking somewhere in the area of 8 months to a year. It could be. Before actually a decision is made by the Supreme Judicial Court.
Just a general reaction from you watching a trial of this scale. What did you learn from what happened today and the weeks leading up to today?
Well, what's interesting and what you learn is that from an attorney's point of view, the circumstantial aspect was the most compelling. When you look at circumstantial evidence as an attorney and you go in, you oftentimes think that a defendant is going to get the benefit of that. That didn't happen here. And it's very unusual from a legal point of view to get a circumstantial case on a first degree. I've been doing this almost 30 years. It's very unusual. So, I think that they went 7 days discussing whether this should be second, whether it should be first, and ultimately they went in with the first on circumstantial, which was very interesting.
It'll be interesting to learn later today and into tonight, how the jurors individually, then collectively as a group, reached this decision on all 5 counts. Those of us sitting back weren't sure after all of these hours of deliberation what was going to happen. There were rumors going around about potentially a hung jury or whether or not it would be guilty on the weapons charges, but not necessarily murder in the first degree. Do you expect a lot of the jurors, now they have the opportunity to speak with the media, to speak with reporters and talk about their decision-making process? Do you think that will happen? Do you think a lot of them will come forward to talk about how they reached this decision?
Yeah, what happens in a high-profile case, and the ones I've had, is that while things are happening, and even today, they may not seek to speak with the media. However, there will be some that will, and they'll talk to you and explain what they thought, had the right to, why they did what they did and where they were. So I think once things settle down, what I have seen in high-profile cases is that there are at least some of the 12 that do come in and will speak. Because of the hectic aspects of today, they may not be speaking today, but they will. They will.
And can we go back for a second to Aaron Hernandez's fiance? It's kind of a confusing situation with the sister and Odin Lloyd's relationship with her, but
Right.
She was granted immunity to testify, and she didn't say a whole lot when she was on the stand. Do you think that played into how the jurors made their decision? Because she was on, as Brian was talking about, tape, both inside and outside of the house days after the murder, and there were questions about what was in that garbage bag, where was the gun, was it a gun? And she did get up and she did answer questions, but a lot of folks were saying she was vague and lost credibility on the stand. What do you think?
I think that, well, remember, she was facing a perjury charge, so what she said in the grand jury clearly was not accurate.
Right.
And they came down on her, and they said, look, we're going to give you immunity. We'll give you a pass, but you better speak truthfully. And so she did, as I watched her testimony, do what she needed to do, but she wasn't giving the prosecution anything extra. So before, where there was no indication of any weapon, we now have an indication based on her testimony that that was what was being brought out. And as a result, I think she may not have given the prosecution everything they wanted, but the aspects of what she did after that crime led to, I think, and assisted the jury in the first degree conviction. And
what happens to her next? Is she going to face any charges?
Based on watching her testimony, her immunity will stand.
It'll stick. Okay.
She didn't appear to lie, and so now I think she's going to be. That's going to be the end of it. I don't think there's going to be any further prosecution of her, although you never know, but it doesn't look like it at this point.
In the days and weeks leading up to this verdict, there was a lot of tension, you could say, for lack of a better word, between the prosecutor and the judge. There was all this back and forth with text messages, whether or not they could be used. How do you think that played into the decision that was made by the jurors, the relationship between the judge and the prosecutor?
Well, I don't know if they really saw, that relationship play out. I think as I saw her rulings, I thought she was dead on in terms of the prejudicial aspect versus probative aspect on almost every one.
And what does that mean, Mark?
I think she gave a good decision on aspects of prejudicial evidence versus probative evidence.
And what does that mean exactly for our viewers?
Well, what that means is that if it's too prejudicial, it doesn't come in, like a text that says, "I'm with NFL."
Okay.
It has no probative value as to the elements of the charge. If it's more probative, then it does come in. And she gave Hernandez's team a lot of those breaks. As I saw this trial, this was a clean trial. I think she tried a very clean trial, and I don't think that I saw many bases for appeal.
Okay. You're the defense attorney, imagine, one of the defense attorneys on the Aaron Hernandez team. What are you going through right now?
It's tough. It's tough. You put your heart and soul into these cases. You do everything you can for the benefit of your client, and it's difficult. I mean, this is life and death. This is serious business. And look, as criminal defense attorneys, we have cases where the defendants are found guilty, and it affects their lives greatly as well as their families. And it's tough. Any defense lawyer that tells you that it's not tough isn't really being candid, because you move on to the next one, but these cases, they take their toll.
Those of you just joining us right now, it is 10:54 in the morning, and Aaron Hernandez is scheduled to be sentenced soon. He's been found guilty on all 5 counts against him, including first-degree murder and weapons charges. Family was present in the courtroom today, and our legal analyst, NBC 10's Mark Dana, is on the phone with us now answering some procedural questions about what happens next. I want to ask you, too, Mark, there were no witnesses to any of this who testified. So that plays into the whole circumstantial piece of all of this. Very unusual, right, to have gotten five counts of guilty, on all 5 counts guilty, considering that there were no witnesses to what actually happened.
That is very unusual, and to carry the day on whether or not he committed first degree on circumstantial is unusual. And the prosecution went to great lengths to show his steps before and after. And I mean steps right down to every single text message, the time. And at times during the course of the trial, it looked laborious. Like, what are we doing here? But it's critical, because each one of those pieces established the circumstantial case that they needed.
Mark, thank you. We're going to go